This week's Parshas Beha'alotcha, begins Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe Lemor. God tells Moshe, Daber el Aaron, tell Aaron, V'amarte Elav Beha'alotcha Haneiros el Mol Pnei HaMenorah Yerushivas Haneiros. So the Torah begins with the Parsha of the menorah, and there's an interesting discussion among the Rishonim, the commentators, of what exactly was the mitzvah of lighting the menorah, of Beha'alotcha et Haneiros. So the Rambam writes, Maimonides writes, that the hatava, the preparation for the menorah, has to be done by a kohen, by a priest, but the lighting of the candles could be done by a zar, a non-kohen. Right? Is it still on? So that's the Rambam's opinion, that the preparation has to be done by a kohen, but the halakha has to be done, but the halakha can be done by a non-kohen. And it's mashal from the Rambam, this is even l'chatchila. There's nothing wrong with it. The Rabbi disagrees and says l'chatchila everything should be done by the kohen, but b'diavad, maybe if the non-kohen did the halakha, it's still good. But so the Klei Chemda, one of the classical svarim on Chumash, points out what is the issue at hand between the Rambam and the Rabbi. What is the Nekudas HaMachloket? What is the point of contention? What does the Rambam say, l'chatchila, even a non-kohen can light the candles, while the Rabbi says no? So it could be the Klei Chemda suggests, and other Achronim as well, that what exactly is the nature of the mitzvah of lighting candles in the Beis HaMikdash? Is there a Maisa Hadlaka? Is the mitzvah that you have to do an act? The focus is on the act. You have to do the act of lighting candles? Or no? Sheyinir Dolok. The point of it that it should be light in the Beis HaMikdash. But there's no mitzvah per se of you to light the menorah. We don't care how it gets done, we just want it done. So that seems to be the machlokas, the Rambam and the Ravid. The Rambam seems to say the mitzvahs as long as there's light, because he says even a non-kohen can light the candles. The hatava, which is the beginning of the process, that the kohen perhaps has to kick it off. But once the process began, even a non-kohen could do it, because the mitzvah isn't the maisa, the act of lighting, is the result. As the Chazon Ish writes in Menachos, he says even if a monkey lit the candles, it would be good. The point is that as long as the candles are lit, as long as there's light, that's the mitzvah. And the Ravid seems to disagree and say that no, perhaps the mitzvah is the Maisa Hadlaka. The mitzvah is the actual lighting, and therefore if it's the actual lighting, then it should preferably be done by a kohen. So that's the machlokas Rambam and Ravid regarding the mitzvah of lighting candles in the Beis HaMikdash, Beha'alotcha Haneiros. Where else do we find in halacha a mitzvah of candles?
Shabbos.
Correct, every Friday night. Near Shabbos. When else?
Hanukkah.
Correct.
Well, all the Yom Tovim.
Right. But near Shabbos and Yom Tov, right? And then all the in Chanukah. So, what about by Chanukah? What is the mitzvah of near Chanukah? Is it the Maisa Hadlaka? Is it the act of lighting? Or is it that it should be light in the house?
Act of lighting.
Correct. How do you know?
Because if it's done for you, it doesn't mean anything, because the whole point is that you light it.
Right, we'll see. Well, we make the bracha lehadlik near Chanukah, but there's a halacha by near Chanukah Asa lahanos, you can't get benefit from the candles. So obviously, the point can't be that there should be light, meaning it could be there should be light, but since I can't get benefit for it, the point isn't that you're not lighting up the room with any purpose. It has to be, that's why the separate halachas, by Hanukkah, it has to be recognizable when you light it, that in other words, you can't light it above 20 amas, a place where you're not allowed to light candles, and then bring it down. Because since Hanukkah is a mitzvah, at the moment you light the candles, it has to be recognizable. And in fact, the Taz writes that it's patterned after the laws of the Beis HaMikdash. So that we see from the Taz, not only is Hanukkah the mitzvah, the Ma'aseh Hadlaka, but he says also, he seems to be saying like the Ravid, that also by the nearest of the Beis HaMikdash as well, it's the Ma'aseh Hadlaka. So that by Hanukkah also, it seems to be, Hanukkah seems to be more pretty clear cut, it's the Ma'aseh Hadlaka. But what about Ner Shabbos? What about lighting Shabbos candles? Is the mitzvah the Ma'aseh Hadlaka, is it the act of kindling the light? Or is the fact that you have light in your house?
It's the act of kindling.
So we'll see. So the Rambam writes, Sheyeh Ner Dolok. The Rambam in Hilchos Shabbos writes that the point is that you should have light in the house. As we'll see, perhaps since as the Gemara tells us in Shabbos, the purpose of Ner Shabbos is for Shalom Bayis. It's a piece of household that people stumble in the dark and stub their toe and it causes tension. So it's the end game. We're interested that you can eat, have enjoyment with the lights. So we see, according to the Rambam, the mitzvah by Ner Shabbos seems to be Sheyeh Ner Dolok, not the Ma'aseh Hadlaka. And the Rav Yah compares Ner Shabbos to Ner Chanukah. He says, just like by Ner Chanukah, the mitzvah is the Ma'aseh Hadlaka, the act of lighting, so too by Shabbos as well, the mitzvah is the Ma'aseh Hadlaka. So actually this issue, whether Ner Shabbos is the Ma'aseh Hadlaka, the act of kindling, or that there should be Shabbos lights, this seems to be two opinions in the Bali Tosis, in the Tosis and Shabbos Tav Chav Hey. The Tosis discusses a case where, let's say you have candles lit for in the morning. You lit candles at 10 a.m. and now Shabbos is coming. I guess it's a long candle. So what, could I just use that candle that was lit at 10 a.m. and use it for my Shabbos candles? Or do I have to blow out the candles and relight them? So Tosfos quotes two opinions. The first opinion Tosfos quotes is that it's okay. Just leave it go and you fulfill your mitzvah. Parenthetically, that's the opinion that says you don't need to make a bracha on Ner Shabbos at all. So this opinion says you don't have to make a bracha anyway, and he says all you have to do is leave the candles going, and that's it. Rabbeinu Tam disagrees. He says you have to blow out the candles and relight them. So it's a machlokes, Rabbeinu Tam versus the other Bali Tosfos, on whether you have to blow out the candles or not. What seems to be the issue at hand? Whether you have to blow them out or can you leave them? So it seems to be, if you hold the mitzvah, it has to be light in your house. So then maybe we could entertain whether you could just leave those candles going, and therefore it's okay. But if you hold, you need the Ma'aseh Hadlaka, you need the act of lighting candles, so then obviously you have to and that's to Rabbeinu Tam's opinion. We seem to pass like Rabbeinu Tam, that one has to blow out the candles and relight them, and that one minute is well to make a bracha as well. In fact, there's a Gemara in Shabbos which says you can't light too early and you can't light too late. And it's a discussion in the Rishonim whether it's talking about Ner Shabbos or Ner Chanukah, because we all know Ner Chanukah, the halacha is that you can't light. It's a machlokes between the Rambam and other Rishonim, when does the mitzvah begin of Ner Chanukah? Whether it begins at sunset or begins at nightfall. So whatever opinion it is, according to the Rambam, you can't light before sunset. According to the other opinion, you can't light before nightfall. And the Rambam writes, you can't light when there aren't people left. So it's a discussion among the Rishonim whether it's referring to Chanukah also, but some say it's referring to Shabbos. So if it's referring to Shabbos, the Rambam only quotes this halacha by Chanukah, but other Rishonim apply it to Shabbos as well. So there's a famous case in the Magen Avram that used to be common practice. So the Magen Avram writes that, let's say, there's a common practice, people used to get married Friday before Shabbos and then use the Shabbos meal as a suda, as a wedding meal. So the question was, the kala was too busy, she wanted a guy to light candles before sunset, and then when she got around to it, she was going to make the bracha over the candles. So that was the Magen Avram's question. So the Magen Avram writes, it's okay, she could have the guy light the candles and she can make the bracha. So many Achronim, Rabbi Kiva Eger, the Nitzivas and others say, what are you talking about? Number one, ain't shlichus la'akum, you can't appoint a non-Jew to be a messenger for you. And they give other issues, but they disagree with the psak of the Magen Avram. They say, no, you can't do that. What's the issue at hand, whether I can have a guy light the candles? The Magen Avram seems to be working with the opinion that the mitzvah is that as long as there's light. So who cares if I light or the guy lights it, I could still make the bracha. The point is that there's light. However, the other opinion seems to say no. The mitzvah is the Maisa Hadlaka, and therefore I have to go ahead and do it myself. That's what the Shulchan Aruch Harav points out, that if you hold the mitzvah is to have light, it's result-oriented. When it comes to a mitzvah which is result-oriented, we don't need shlichus. We don't need a messenger. There's no din of shlichus. Shlichus is only on the Maisa if there's a mitzvah involves an act. Then we say it's a problem. But if it's result-oriented, so there's no problem of shlichus. That's what the Marach or Zerua writes by Mila in a different context. So we see this seems to be the Machlokas Rishonim in the Balitosis, and the Machlokas Magen Avram Rabbi Kiva Eger seems to revolve around the issue whether the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos is the act of lighting or is the fact that the house should be lit. In fact, maybe we could understand it a little more by understanding another concept. We know there's something called Kavod Shabbos and Oneg Shabbos. Kavod Shabbos, Kavod is honor. We honor the Shabbos. Oneg means we delight in the Shabbos. So the nice words, but what do they mean in real life? So the Vilna Gaon, Rav Tzadok HaKohen, and others point out, so you know what, when we talk about Kavod Shabbos, we're talking about everything you do before Shabbos. Taking a haircut, getting the food ready, setting the table. Everything you do before Shabbos is Kavod Shabbos. Anything you do on Shabbos is Oneg Shabbos. That's the distinction that Vilna Gaon makes. So the question is, where does Hadlaka's Ner fit in? Does Hadlaka's Ner Shabbos, when we light the candles for Shabbos, is that part of Kavod Shabbos or Oneg Shabbos?
Kavod Shabbos.
Right, so that's a discussion whether it's so perhaps it could be dependent on this question as well. If you hold the mitzvah is Kavod Shabbos has to be done before, then perhaps you hold the mitzvahs to Maisa Hadlaka. You need to actually light the candle yourself. You have to do the Maisa, because the mitzvah of Kavod's on you. But if the mitzvah is Oneg, then what's the difference? The mitzvah is enjoying it. So right now I'm enjoying my Shabbos candles. What's the difference if I lit it or not? So perhaps it's dependent on that issue. That issue is dependent, that halacha is dependent on this as well. But the Rambam seems, and some want to say it is both aspects. Because the Rambam writes, you know what? he classifies hadlakas near Shabbos as covered, and he says you have to light candles before Shabbos. So what does he mean? He's telling me, you know what? Make sure you light candles before Shabbos. What's the other option? The Rambam is telling me don't machal Shabbos. Don't light candles. We know go sevaru eish b'chol moshvo seichem b'yom HaShabbos. We know there's a prohibition to light candles. So what's the Rambam telling me? That you have to light candles before Shabbos. So the answer is that the Rambam's telling me this halacha, the Brisker Rav points out. He's telling me halachas near Shabbos is the din is covered. Of course you can't light candles afterwards. But it's not just a practical thing, it's part of a din of covered Shabbos. And hence there's an interesting discussion regarding Yontif, whether the minhag, obviously we light candles before we make the bracha on Shabbos, because you can't light candles after, because the assumption being you're accepting Shabbos. But Yontif, what about Yontif? You're allowed to light fire from a pre-existing flame. So that's a further discussion among the Achronim, whether on Yontif you make the bracha first, because normally we make a bracha, then we do it. So that's the whole discussion. If bracha is part of covered Shabbos, covered Yontif as well. So that's the whole discussion on it. So we see there's a fundamental issue whether the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos is the Maisa Hadlaka or that you should have light in your house. And in fact, a very contemporary question is that now comes up more, because today we have a concept of early Shabbos. Again, we make Shabbos early all the time, because why? Because we have a biblical mitzvah of Tosefes Shabbos. We have a biblical mitzvah of adding to Shabbos. In fact, there is a discussion in the Rishonim. The Gemara tells us in Yuma explicitly, and everyone learns, there's a mitzvah in our Torah of adding to Yom Kippur, Tosefes Yom Kippurim, before and after. What about Tosefes Shabbos and Yontif? That's a discussion in the Rishonim. We paskin that even Shabbos and Yontif is D'oraisa. And as the Gemara tells us in Brachas, Rav Soi Shel Shabbos Be'erev Shabbos. Rav Daven on Shabbos, Rav Daven Shabbos davening on Erev Shabbos, and he also made Kiddush. So we see, but if Kiddush is a mitzvah in our Torah, and Rav was permitted to make Kiddush during Tosefes Shabbos, it must mean that Tosefes Shabbos is also D'oraisa. That's the way we paskin. Yontif as well. There's many days on Yontif we don't do it because of the Leil Pesach, of the Seder, or because of Tamimis on Truas, but fundamentally there's no difference between Shabbos and Yontif. There is a mitzvah, we passed in, they're all D'oraisa. Tosefes Shabbos, Yontif, and Yom Kippur. So they point out that there's a concept of Tosefes Shabbos, so we make Shabbos early. But when I say making Shabbos early, that we do all year round. I mean making it early in the colloquial sense that we daven while it's still light out. I don't mean davening a couple minutes before Shkia. I mean davening, starting Mincha before Plag HaMincha. In other words, there's the question, when is the earliest time to daven Ma'ariv? So that depends on when is the latest time to daven Mincha. So Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is you could daven Mincha until Plag HaMincha, which is an hour and a quarter before sunset. So on a 6 to 6 day would be 4:45. And Chachamim say, and then Rabbi Yehuda said you could daven Ma'ariv right afterwards. And Chachamim say no, Mincha until sunset, and then Ma'ariv preferably at nightfall, but perhaps after Shkia. So the Gemara says, how do we paskin? The Gemara says you could pick your own medicine as long as you're consistent. Pick any opinion you want, but you got to be consistent. In other words, if I daven mincha, so if I daven mincha after Plag HaMincha, that means I'm already accepting the Chachamim's opinion. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can't daven mincha after Praga mincha. So he says, so then you'd have to wait until nightfall to daven Ma'ariv. In other words, you can't go, because you can't daven mincha and Ma'ariv in the same time zone, because mincha is screaming out it's day, Ma'ariv is screaming it's night. So therefore, we want to avoid a tarte desastre, a contradiction.